This time we're going to go through Andromeda, Perseus, Pegasus, and Camelopardalis. So here goes. Whoops, I kind of went way too fast there. Here we go, back to Andromeda. If you remember from past constellation weeks, Andromeda is the princess that was sacrificed to Cetus the sea monster. Her mother, Cassiopeia, was very, very vain and bragged that she was more beautiful than the daughters of Poseidon. And so Poseidon sicked a sea monster, Cetus, on the country of Ethiopia. Andromeda's father, Cepheus, went forth and asked, "How do I save my country?" and was told he had to sacrifice his daughter Andromeda. So what happened to Andromeda is she was actually chained to a rock out in the middle of the ocean, so she would be a handy snack for the sea monster. And when you see pictures of Andromeda, they usually show there's a great nebula right about the location of where it's supposed to represent some chains, where she is chained to that rock. Andromeda looks very much to me like a large V, very large V, and often it has one sort of an arm that goes off to one side. But this arm that goes off to the side is not as bright. The stars are not of greater magnitude than the V of Andromeda. This illustration shows the V upside down. This illustration shows the V right side up. And here's another one that shows the V right side up. The Andromeda galaxy is, of course, found towards the constellation Andromeda, and that's why it got named Andromeda Galaxy. This is an important constellation because that is where our nearest galactic neighbor is. So if you ever have your telescope out and you find Andromeda, you look really close. You might see our closest galactic neighbor. Perseus. Perseus is the hero who actually saved Andromeda and eventually married her. So Perseus, the hero, came to Andromeda's rescue, actually saved her, cut her loose from the rocks. You have the maiden chained to the rocks, and he cut her loose. And Cetus, the sea monster, was going to devour her. But a lot of people remember from mythology the story of Medusa. Medusa was this lady who had a head full of lots and lots of snakes. Perseus killed her, put her head in a bag, and when he was trying to free Andromeda, he pulled the head out of the bag and caused the sea monster to be turned to stone, and hence saved Andromeda. Now, looking at the constellation Perseus, Andromeda, Cepheus, these guys are all going to be kind of close together. How do you identify Perseus? Perseus is supposed to be, this is his torso, that's the midsection of his body, and this is his raised arm and sword, and these of course are Perseus's two legs. Sometimes you will see Perseus drawn like this, and to me he looks a little like the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz. Kind of depends upon which magnitude stars are included in the drawing. Merfak, which is supposed to be the shoulder of Perseus, is the alpha star in this constellation and hence the brightest. Pegasus is the winged horse. And to continue with the story that from ancient mythology, Perseus used the winged horse Pegasus to fly out to the middle of the ocean and find his beloved chained to a rock. And so Perseus used Pegasus, the winged horse. Now, when you see Pegasus in the sky, you don't see the entire horse. You basically see the constellation is supposed to represent his chest, and then his head, and then his feet. So Perseus, I'm sorry, I said Perseus, I meant Pegasus. Pegasus is this large square with his feet sticking out. Now, this happens to be just an inverted image of that one. And a lot of artist drawings are inverted, so they kind of make a little bit of sense. On this picture, There's Pegasus, Andromeda, the big V, and our hero Perseus. One of the other things that's very easy to spot with Pegasus is called the Great Square of Pegasus. It's an asterism. If you look up into the night sky and you happen to see 4 very large bright stars and go to yourself, it looks like a big square, it might just be the Great Square of Pegasus. Here's one more circumpolar constellation. Now this one is very, very dim. So dim, made of such dim stars that it wasn't created until the 1600s. And there's a handful of them we're going to talk about that are dim constellations and weren't created until the 1600s, meaning they're not part of the collection of ancient constellations that Ptolemy created 2,000 years ago. Why am I including some of these? Well, they are in the Northern Hemisphere. If you look at a star chart, I've had so many students look at me going, what's this Camelopardalis thing? Because it's on every star chart for the Northern Hemisphere. The challenge is it's hard to see because its stars are relatively dim. Now, if I say Camelopardalis, you probably think of the word camel. Well, Camelopardalis is a combo word. The word camel basically means camel, desert-dwelling animal, and pardalis means spotted leopard. So Camelopardalis is a camel with spots. Well, what is a camel with spots? A giraffe. So Camelopardalis is supposed to represent a giraffe. So here's his head, his very long neck, his body, and then legs. That is the Camelopardalis constellation. Now, Camelopardalis is circumpolar. We see it. It's up all year long. It's next to Cassiopeia. It is above Perseus. Ursa Major is next to it. So it's tucked right in between Cassiopeia and Ursa Major. So it occupies a big chunk in the sky, even though it is relatively dim. All right, folks, that ends this bunch. We'll see you next time.